So the one positive thing that at least is going on right now is the Americans overseas, the Yanks abroad, as they're known, had a really, really pretty good stretch here. Let's see. We had Parker scoring.
Yep.
Joe Corona scored for Club Tijuana.
Mm.
Beasley scored. Bradley scored. Dempsey scored a brace, and then he scored today against Chelsea. Torres had an assist. Lehigh and Fabian Johnson are busy playing left back. Daniel Williams got 90 minutes. Chandler played the full 90 for Nuremberg. That's not unexpected, but I guess that was
Yeah.
at right midfield, right?
Yeah, there's talks that with Nuremberg that he's going to be playing right mid as far as his career choice is concerned.
Yeah.
Whether or not he stays at the club is up in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say his contract ends this season.
It,
I think.
it might.
And there's talks of people. I mean, not really talks. There's a lot of posters saying that they hope he switches to a different club. He goes back to right back and it starts doing a career back at right back. So
You know what? Though, well, we don't really. I mean, being selfish here, we don't really need him to play right back. As long as Dolo stays healthy, he's a really good, fine option for us. I mean, we've been stuffing Daniel Williams in that right midfield spot, right?
well, it's an interesting topic because Dolo pretty much only has this last cycle in him.
Right.
After this cycle, I can't imagine him going through another cycle. He'd be like the oldest right back ever.
No, he'll be done after that.
Yeah. But then, I guess the idea is that you want to start to groom the future right back, which is Chandler, which is what a lot of people are looking at as Chandler. But here's an interesting idea. I mean, Donovan's not really getting any younger at right mid.
Right.
We've got to start grooming somebody for the right mid, and God knows that we don't have that great of depth at right or any of our wings positions.
Right.
What if we look at, say, Johnson at left back, and you throw somebody like Lehigh at right back, who's doing well with Aston Villa, although at left back, oddly enough, and then continue using Chandler as a right mid.
Well, okay. I don't mind that, but right now Dolo still plays. So you're talking about after Dolo's gone.
I'm talking about the future. At this point, a lot of people are saying they hope he goes to a different club so he can play right back, and they're talking about the future, not necessarily the immediate present.
Well, here's how I say it. I see it at least. I think, Donovan showed he can play left midfield or right midfield. But if you really get aggressive and you want to keep Shea on the field, which I suspect we might see from Klinsmann, so you play Shea at left midfield and then you have Chandler out on the right. What does that give you the option to do? It gives you the option of playing a different mix up front. You can go Dempsey, Altidore, or even Dempsey, Donovan. I mean, people have been clamoring to see those two play together up top. But the thing is then who becomes the holding, striker? That becomes the problem. I think Altidore and Dempsey work together because Altidore is getting so good at holding the ball. Dempsey can do some holding as well, but a lot of people have been saying, boy, I'd really like to see Dempsey and Donovan up top. You got Shea on the left, Chandler on the right, Dolo on the RB, Johnson on the left B, and in the middle you have, let's say, Bradley and Jones. That's quite a starting lineup.
I've never really been a huge fan of Donovan playing up top.
Yeah.
I always say that his best strength has always been having the open field to run through.
Well, that's why I say maybe he could play CAM and put Dempsey all the way on top where Altidore is now.
And I mean, given that the fact that he's aging after this cycle, perhaps being more of a secondary striker is going to be a more ideal role for him because he won't. Eventually he won't have the legs that he used to have.
Right.
To continue running up and down that right-hand side.
Right.
If we're going to throw anybody at CAM, I would rather throw Dempsey at CAM and have Donovan and Josie up top, if we're talking about one or the other.
Right.
And then have Bradley or Jones sit behind the CAM and play a pure defensive mid.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say to do. Although at this point I would still say keep Donovan outright. He's serviceable. He has speed still, and he has that ability to cut in and open up space.
Yeah, but he showed he can play out left if necessary.
Well, if necessary, yes.
And then the way Chandler's been playing left. I mean, they could do that flip-flopping thing that Dempsey and Donovan do all the time when they both were playing left midfield and right midfield. They flip-flopped all the time, back and forth, keeps the defense on their heels.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I mean, the good news is there's lots of options. Now, we talked about the fact that a lot of Americans had a great week. But Dempsey is having one hell of a week, 3 goals in a few days, 2 over the weekend, and then 1 against Chelsea today to tie the game. I'm just kind of wondering at this point, he's 4th in scoring in the league. I mean, the only guys ahead of him are Robin Van Persie, Wayne Rooney, and Sergio Aguero. And it's not like Fulham is like he's scoring for this bottom of the table team. They're in the top of the table. I think they were around 9th last time I looked. I mean, what does this guy need to? I mean, is he going to play eternally for Fulham? They love him at Fulham. I'm glad he's there, but is there another option for him? Is it even worth it at this point? He's 28 now. Is it worth going to another team for the next few years and giving it a shot at like a Liverpool or a Chelsea? I mean, shit. Chelsea could use him. Fernando Torres can't score to save his life. So,
I mean, I guess it's how you want to look at it. Obviously, the Fulham fans and the organization as a whole certainly love him on the team. He scored quite a few goals this season, as you pointed out. Whether or not he is a good option to move to a new team, like a could-be top team, such as, say, Liverpool or Chelsea or anything along those lines. I guess it just depends on what he wants to do as a player. If he wants to test himself, I mean, he's getting up there in age where I would almost hate for him to go to a bigger team simply because then he'd have to sit there and prove himself over other big players, which I believe he can do it. He's done it before, and he's done it multiple years in a row.
He scores goals.
And he scores goals. That's the big thing right there. I don't think he'd have to prove himself for too long. I think he'd eventually make it. I feel like I guess if you're looking at it more of a personal thing, it could be a major paycheck to go to a bigger club. He could make a lot more money.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned the service. He'd be getting better service.
He'd get a lot better service, yeah.
I mean,
just imagine if he had the service of one of the top teams.
Exactly.
And he's scoring that without it.
Right. And, I mean, listen, Fernando Torres. All right, this is the thing. I mean, people say, all right, well, Fernando Torres, he's in a slump. He's a super skilled player.
He's been in a slump for a while.
He's been in a slump for a long time. So okay, let's just say Fernando Torres is a more skilled player than Clint Dempsey. I'm fine with that. But you know what? Gary Lineker back in the day was not the most skilled player that you would find playing on. You know what he did though? He scored in goals.
Finished.
That's all. That's all that matters when you're a striker. Score some fucking goals. And that's one thing Dempsey knows how to do. And he's playing with on a team that, in a lot of ways has very old players in a lot of spots. You got Murphy. Damian Duff's been playing great, but I mean, come on, these guys are old. And what if he had some fresh, new, thoughtful talent? Who knows what Clint Dempsey could do on another team? Hard to say. All right. Did you want to say anything else about any of the other Yanks abroad?
No, you pretty much hit them all.
All right. Because
but I want to say Josie has a couple of important games coming up here. I believe he has a game on Wednesday and a game on Saturday.
Okay.
Both league games.
Mm-hmm.
AZ needs to step it up and try to regain that top spot.
Let's hope they do. Now, there was, as you did point out, Andre Wooten may agree to a deal with another team because he's been riding pine on Kaiserslautern, and maybe it's time for him to move to another team, especially since he's riding pine on a team that can't score goals, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that the team's getting criticized for actually keeping him on the reserves for as long as they have.
Yeah.
So
why do you do that when you can't score goals? I mean, he's scoring goals on the reserves, right?
I mean, again, don't quote me. I've only followed certain aspects. I believe I read on there recently that they just recently they recently got a new coach, a new manager.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand not immediately jumping onto your reserve team, and trying to reorganize your current squad. But I mean, if you have an entire three-quarters of a season of struggling to put goals away or struggling as a team, then you have to implement change.
Yeah.
And if you continue to do the same thing that the manager prior to you has done,
right,
I don't know what it's going to accomplish.
Yeah, you bring a new manager in to make some changes, hopefully. But sometimes it's just a morale boost, but other times, it actually makes a damn difference. People said, how come you guys don't talk about the CONCACAF Champions League? What's there to talk about?
We have talked about it.
We did talk about it earlier on when we were doing fun. We talked about Seattle losing. We talked about L.A. going
losing
out.
to Toronto.
Right. We talked about the fact that we thought Toronto was going to lose. I mean, and they did. They got killed, right? I mean, what's there to talk about?
They got slaughtered, yeah.
Or were you supposed to drown in sorrow or in our drinks? I mean, we got stomped. Santos Laguna, and right now the Mexican teams, they're just, this time of season's really favorable for them in some ways, and unfavorable in others if a team's in there for Mexico that has a lot of injuries. But they've even shown they can play half their second team and still win these games. We've got a long ways to go yet to reach Don Garber's goal of having a CONCACAF Champions League winner from the MLS. That's it. End of story. Before we call it a night, there was one thing else that I found a little frustrating, and maybe you can help me out on this. I know you don't watch TV that much because you have another way of doing it, but on the History Channel, I don't know if you saw this, but they had this whole program on Leonardo da Vinci, and the whole thing is about this, and this is on the History Channel, not like the Make Believe Channel or the Alien Channel or anything, but the whole point of the program was that perhaps he did all that great work because he crawled into a cave and went into a time portal, and or the other idea that why he was so good at what he did is that he hooked up with aliens, and they told him all this advanced stuff. And I'm just wondering what's going on with the History Channel, because it's really kind of turning into this really weird Bigfoot meets the Loch Ness Monster meets Leonardo da Vinci in a time portal. Why can't the guy just be smart?
Well, I have prior to losing cable, I used to watch History Channel all the time.
Me too.
And I still on Netflix. I still watch a lot of their shows that are on there.
Yeah.
I will say that the History Channel has been playing a lot more of the
alien card.
Skeptic alien type stuff, like the Ancient Aliens. Although I know, honestly, I enjoyed the Ancient Alien segments.
Well, that's when they
the whole series.
That's when they say, like, well, the Mayans could have only done that, or the Aztecs could have only done that, or the pyramids could only have been built because of... Yeah, aliens. Yeah. Right.
They have this hieroglyphics. Look at that, it looks like an alien, and this looks like an alien, and that looks like a spaceship, like the spaceship that we use to go up into space now. And yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. They have a lot of shows on there.
Yeah.
Very not a lot of shows. They have some shows, a couple at least, and then they have the UFO stuff on there. And I understand your point. It's not really history. Some of it's history. Technically speaking, Leonardo is from the past, which is history.
Right.
But this doesn't necessarily, because when I look at history, I look at more of not necessarily facts, but at least guided facts.